Welcome everyone to Monton Unitarian Church's reflection for Sunday the 7th of June. This is our Flower Communion service. And I'll begin as I always do by lighting a candle. If you have one at home that you would like to light, now is the time to do it. Embraced by the flame, all are welcome. Embraced by the flame, all are safe. Embraced by the flame, all are free. Embraced by the flame, all are held. Held in love, held in honesty, held in discovery, held in forgiveness, held in compassion, held in truth-seeking, held in creativity, held in community. The Flower Communion service, which we are celebrating today, was created in 1923 by Dr. Norbert Čapek, founder of the modern Unitarian movement in Czechoslovakia. On the last Sunday before the summer recess of the Unitarian Church in Prague, all the children and adults participated in this colourful ritual, which gives concrete expression to the humanity-affirming principles of our liberal faith. When the Nazis took control of Prague in 1940, they found Dr. Čapek's gospel of the inherent worth and beauty of every human person to be too dangerous to the Reich for him to be allowed to live. Dr. Čapek was sent to Dachau, where he was killed the next year during a Nazi medical experiment. This gentle man suffered a cruel death, but his message of human hope and decency lives on through his Flower Communion, which is widely celebrated today. It is a noble and meaning-filled ritual we are about to recreate. And this service includes the original prayers and blessings of Dr. Čapek to help us remember the principles and dreams for which he died. There's a hymn in our Purple Book, number 13, which always feels absolutely perfect for our Flower Communion. And it's entitled, Bring Flowers to Our Altar. Bring flowers to our altar to show nature's beauty, the harvest of goodness in earth, sky and sea. Bring light to our altar to guide every nation from hatred to love and to humanity. Bring a dove to our altar, its wings ever flying, in permanent quest for the peace all may share. Bring bread to our altar, the hungry supplying, and feeding the poor who depend on our care. Bring hope to our altar, in your gentle dreaming of all the good things that will make your heart glad. Bring love to our altar, a bright witness, beaming to all who are burdened or lonely or sad. Bring work to our altar, to help every nation and celebrate all that's already achieved. Come yourself to our altar in true dedication to all the ideals we in common believe. Spirit of life and love, at this time of the year our hearts rise up at the wonderful beauty that is in the world, the beauty of colour and shape and sound and movement, and the beauty of human beings. We are thankful for poets and painters, musicians and dancers, and all the gifted and talented in every generation who enrich our common life. And we are grateful too for the frequent grace in the lives of quite ordinary people who create lives and actions of beauty whilst going about their daily business. But all our human creativeness is only a small part of the wonder of the world. The shapes and colours of flowers and fruit, the curling of a wave or a tendril, the songs of birds, the graceful movements of living creatures, the regularity of a crystal, all these and many more things are part of the beauty of your world. It is this which enables us to face up to the ugliness and pain of the world, which is also a continuing feature of it. All things grow misshapen, including human lives. There is grace and there is distortion. There is sweetness and there is bitterness. There is wonderful creativeness and there is senseless destruction. May we learn to live in such a world and with such a human nature. And we pray that those who do not yet see the beauty of this earth, either because they are too blinkered by greed or anger or hate, or because they are surrounded by violence, misery, hunger and suffering, may one day be able to find enough peace and justice and enough understanding and wisdom to open their hearts and minds to the blessings that this life has to offer. Amen. So we're looking at flowers. And Ruth E. Gibson has a short reflection entitled Learning from Daffodils. When you look at a daffodil, there are lots of things you may notice, but almost no one ever notices the little withered brown bit at the base of the flower. But it's really important. When the daffodils come up, the ground is still pretty hard and there's sometimes cold and snow. So at first, the daffodils have a tough green skin protecting their blossoms. After it gets warmer, the daffodil doesn't need this protection and it shrivels and dies. Often in our lives, just as for the daffodil, some part of us has to shrivel up and die so that some new part of us can grow and give beauty to the world. Oddly enough, though, the dead shriveled up part of a daffodil doesn't fall away. There are two things we can learn from a daffodil to help ourselves and each other. We can be brave and wise enough, when the right time comes, to push out from under the tough skins of our souls that protect us from all that is hard and harsh, all that can damage the more fragile parts of ourselves. We can let some parts of ourselves die, so that new parts of ourselves can live in beauty. And we can hold on to the shriveled up dead bits, especially if doing so helps us remember to honour and value all parts of ourselves, all parts of our experience. Just because we don't need that part or that way of being in the world now, doesn't mean that part has no value. It was very necessary to have that protection then, and very good to remember and appreciate it now. When I started creating this service, what normally happens is that people bring a flower to church, and at the start of the service we bring them forward and place them in a communal vase, and at the end, after they are blessed, we each take an individual flower home, not the one we brought. Current circumstances mean we can't do that. So what I asked people to do instead, if they wanted to, was to write to me and tell me what flower they would like to bring and why. And as I read them to you now, you may wish to think, "Ooh, I'll take that one home with me." Alan Perks. The lily, often used to symbolize purity. In Chinese culture, apparently it represents unity. It is perhaps that which is needed at the moment. The prayer blessing would be a prayer for peace and unity. Ken Jones said, "A Chinese peony, pure white with a lovely perfume, quite rare, I believe. One of Mother Nature's many blessings bestowed upon us, despite the ugly world we all live in right now." Joy Dean wrote and said, "I would bring a rose called Peace from my garden. This is a large, pale yellow cream bush rose, mildly scented, which flowers from spring until autumn. My garden is where I find my peace and connection with nature. Whomever loves and understands a garden will find peace and contentment therein." Pam Ward wrote about a sunflower. She said, "When I was little I grew a sunflower in the garden that grew very tall. Well, much bigger than me anyway, but I was only about 7 or 8 years old at the time. Everyone admired it and I was very proud of myself. When my dad passed away in 2004, someone sent us sunflowers, which seemed a little odd for funeral flowers. However, they brought back so many happy memories of spending time in the garden with him, and of the love, warmth and humour that he shared with everyone. So my blessing would be, may those that look upon this flower remember those that have brought sunshine and happiness into their lives, and love and appreciate those who continue to do so." Charles van den Brode. My flower is the yellow rose, different than the red and white ones, but even more beautiful. Gordon Knight. Every year my daughter Julie would buy Shirley an orchid for her birthday in December. None of these orchids ever flowered again, except one. That orchid was the last one Julie bought her mum in December 2017, just 17 days before we lost Shirley. This orchid has flowered again every spring since. For me, this has huge spiritual significance. Dave Spears spoke of the Weiße Rose. The White Rose was a non-violent intellectual resistance group in the Third Reich, led by a group of students called Hans and Sophie Schirl. They attended the University of Munich. The group conducted an anonymous leaflet and graffiti campaign that called for active opposition to the Nazi regime. They were beheaded after a short show trial by the Nazi People's Court. So my blessing would be, may love shine upon and from every person who is or has been involved in non-violent protest, so that the voice of the one may no longer be silent but heard, so that the many who hear may take action. Polly Cheer, a new friend of ours, wrote and said, "My favourite flower is the orchid. Even the word orchid has strength. Orchids seem to be very content with very little. They don't need much water or sunlight. When in flower they have a gentle, delicate presence. And there's a beautiful contradiction between the delicate petals and the large, chunky leaves below. In a way, these characteristics describe my own character too. They are my friends and help me to feel at home." Colin Morse said quite simply, "I commend the roses around the church at the moment. They are all beautiful. Such a pity they are not seen. They are so healthy." Linda Holt said, "I would like to offer snowdrops, symbolising hope at this time of concern and fear. The blessing of hope as we emerge from our journey through the pandemic to a future where we retain our love and concern for each other and for our world." And finally, Adam Puyo Barwell said, "It's the daffodil, first symbol of Wales, and reminds me so much of home. It also reminds me of school, as we made such a fuss about daffodils. Daffodils also appear at the beginning of spring, waiting to brighten up the area dulled by winter. Big, bright yellow petals with a round centre, strong and ready after harsh winters. It's a symbol of a new beginning. It gives hope." So many flowers, and I know that each of you at home may be thinking of many different flowers also. Thank you for sharing your flowers and your blessings with us. Whenever Dr. Čapek conducted his flower communion in Prague, he would say this prayer as he consecrated, blessed the flowers. "Infinite Spirit of life, we ask thy blessing on these thy messengers of fellowship and love. May they remind us amid diversities of knowledge and of gifts to be one in desire and affection and devotion to thy holy will. May they also remind us of the value of comradeship, of doing and sharing alike. May we cherish friendship as one of thy most precious gifts. May we not let awareness of another's talents discourage us or sully our relationship, but may we realise that whatever we can do, great or small, the efforts of all of us are needed to do thy work in this world." There's what may be a familiar folk song, written by Unitarian Universalist Pete Seeger, and my preferred version sung by Joan Baez, perfectly matched to the flower communion. Pete Seeger had a beautiful approach to nature, and one time when he was asked about his religious or spiritual views, he replied, I feel most spiritual when I'm out in the woods. I feel part of nature, or looking up at the stars. I used to say I was an atheist. Now I say it's all according to your definition of God. According to my definition of God, I'm not an atheist, because I think God is everything. Whenever I open my eyes, I'm looking at God. And whenever I'm listening to something, I'm listening to God. Beautiful words. And one of his beautiful songs is called Where Have All the Flowers Gone? I choose it not only because of its connection to flowers, but because of its references to the grief of war, experienced also by Dr. Norbert Čapek, the creator of the flower communion that we are celebrating today. It could equally be heard to be a mourning song for all those whose lives have been lost to senseless violence, hatred, and prejudice around the world. Each person killed in any place at any time is a loved one to someone. And so we hold all those who mourn a loved one in our hearts. Those of you who are watching this at home, you may want to pause and listen to Joan Baez and Where Have All the Flowers Gone, if you are able to access it. I'm sorry that I haven't quite got the technology to include it in this video here and now. One day I may do. But we come now to Dr. Čapek's Flower Communion Prayer, where he said, "In the name of Providence, which implants in the seed the future of the tree, and in the hearts of men and women the longing for people living in human love. In the name of the highest, in whom we move, and who makes the mother and father, the brother and sister, what they are. In the name of sages and great religious leaders who sacrificed their lives to hasten the coming of peace and justice. Let us renew our resolution, sincerely to be real brothers and sisters, regardless of any kind of bar which estranges one from another. In this holy resolution, may we be strengthened, knowing that we are God's family, that one Spirit, the Spirit of love, unites us. And may we endeavour for a more perfect and more joyful life. Amen." For a final reading or litany, the Reverend Melvin Kelly is the Methodist chaplain at the University of Leeds Chaplaincy, and he works there on the Unity Project building understanding across faiths. Over the last weekend, he wrote this: "I want to share something with you all, but I need to begin with a disclaimer. I know that I write from a position of privilege. I am white, I am educated, I am employed. I know that I write from a life in which there is prejudice and bias, both conscious and unconscious. I know that I write from a platform of perceived morality when I am as flawed as the next person. But knowing all of that, there is something I want to share, something I must share in humility and love. I write it in the dark shadow cast on our world following the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis, and amidst the unrest and protest that has followed. But there is more to these words than a desire to declare as I must that Black Lives Matter. And as you read, I hope that you hear that dimension of more. Is it a poem? Is it a prayer? I don't know. In my Christian tradition, we have a form of prayer called litany. A litany is a prayer made up of a series of petitions spoken by the leader, followed by a response from the people. If the words, "You are my sister, my brother," form a response in which you can share, then perhaps this is a litany for unity. And I invite you to say these words with me after each question. You are my sister, my brother. Does the colour of your skin differ from mine? You are my sister, my brother. Do you speak and write in a different tongue? You are my sister, my brother. Do you cover your head when I leave mine free? You are my sister, my brother. Does the way we dress set us apart? You are my sister, my brother. Do you pray to heaven in a different name? You are my sister, my brother. Do they say your place of birth is not where you came from? You are my sister, my brother. Does the system work against you at every turn? You are my sister, my brother. Does your voice get silenced? Are your cries unheard? You are my sister, my brother. Do you wake each day expecting more of the same? You are my sister, my brother. Do you long for the day? You are my sister, my brother. I have too often failed to say, you are my sister, my brother. We began this service being embraced and held by our chalice flame. Now I say to you, carrying forth the flame, may you always offer welcome to whoever knocks at your door. Carrying forth the flame, may you always offer a place of refuge to the weary and the fearful. Carrying forth the flame, may you always offer to those around you the freedom to fly where the winds of their life carry them. Carrying forth the flame, may you always offer the touch of your hand, the warmth of your embrace, the strength of your compassion, and the power of your love to build a community on earth in which all may be held and all dwell in peace. Amen. Let us go forth and carry the flame. And as always, I say to you that I will see you again, same time next week. You in your room, me in mine, together in our hearts. Stay safe, stay strong, and know that you are loved.